WP Central Podcast 130 for November 14th, 2011. Hey everybody, Dan Rubino joined again with Jay Bennett for a video live podcast thing.
This is terrifying.
And I kind of screwed up even the day. I can't talk very well yet today. It's still early for myself. Yeah, hopefully everybody can see us. I can't really see anybody right now, so I'm just going to go on a whim here.
Let's just assume and remember
exactly,
that
we're just assuming everybody can see us. Hopefully
Hopefully
we're not freaking anybody out by our appearance. Well, I think people know what you look like from your Twitter photo, at least.
Well, yeah, okay, but I should be wearing the jacket and get the whole thing going so that I just look exactly like everyone expects me to look like. But yeah, for Daniel, this is quite a revelation. Daniel, did your makeup artist arrive on time?
No, unfortunately not, but that's okay. Yeah, I actually had a shower before the podcast time, which is
I'm quite honoured, man. I've got to be honest, because I mean, you don't normally shower for me. It's
true. It's true. But I have to go to work after this, so it makes sense to get ready. But let's just dive into the podcast. This should actually be a shorter podcast this week, due to the fact we did one on Thursday, so not that much has happened.
Wednesday.
Oh, was it Wednesday? Yeah.
Wednesday. Yeah, I think it was Wednesday because you were pretty much dead for the last podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm a little bit more awake this time, so that's good.
Yeah, we'll get one more round of applause, by the way, for actually surviving that one. So for anyone who listened, that was almost 2 hours, and we had a lot to talk about. We had hardware reviews, we had an awful lot of stuff to go through, but yeah, we've only got a few days of news this time around.
That's true. Now, a lot of people wondering, would they be able to ever view this in the WP Central app? I don't think so. I mean, at least definitely not now, but what about in the future?
To be honest, unless we can find a way to live broadcast it in some kind of MP4 format, I'll look into it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun.
It'd be ridiculous because then I'd be terrified about the fact that people would be walking around like looking at me on their phones. It's too much, man. It's too much. Yeah,
I'm not really too sure what the video adds to the podcast, but we'll get some feedback and see how people kind of feel about it. But let's hop into the news, I suppose. Chicago, did you spend the night with Microsoft? Well, it's sort of rhetorical, I guess we're asking, because I don't know if anyone did. I know people went there.
If anyone from Chicago's in the chat room, and if anyone had a little go at this at the night.
Yeah, I know they did have a lot of people turn out. It looked like a good crowd from the tweets that were coming from Windows Phone about the event. But not 100% sure if we have any direct feedback. Let's see, now I gotta scroll up.
No comments or anything on those. I can see I can see some pretty shocking comments on our on the article, including several that are very inappropriate for me to read out on the air. So thanks, readers. So again, we'll just quickly refresh. Dan, tell us about the Let's Spend the Night. Spend the Night, not Let's Spend the Night tour.
Yeah, it sounds kind of inappropriate almost with Microsoft spending the night with them. But basically they're going around to 5 major cities throwing these parties that last about, I don't know, the doors open at 6, but you really don't get in there till like 7. So they're about 3 to 4 hours in length, and it's really good actually. I'm not even a party fan myself, although I got used to it at college. But these are pretty big events. They have, like areas where you can go play with the phones and play with different games. Fruit Ninja, they have an Angry Birds section, live bands, music, food, all of that. And it's really a demonstration of the phone. It's also a celebration of everything. But you get a lot of people to show up and who basically get to, toy with the devices and see what they're about. And it's kind of a good publicity stunt. And I have to admit, I've always said Microsoft throws really good parties. If you can ever go to like any of their events, they generally do a really nice setup, both in terms of the look and the actual things that they offer. And a lot of people generally had fun at this. It was kind of weird because, when corporations throw, parties and try to be hip and cool, they usually fail. But like I said, Microsoft does a good job with this. I mean, people were generally having a really good time. I guess we could probably, surmise that part of that was due to all the free alcohol that was flowing around the place.
I'm one of those people who is a strong advocate that free alcohol can make any night a good night, but
right.
Kids don't drink.
I had a friend that was there, and I was like, yeah, this is what I do. I drink and talk technology, go to these events and take photos. I mean, that's kind of what it's kind of a fun job sometimes. So if you have a chance, I highly recommend it. Like I said, New York City was sold out for both nights. I think Chicago had a really massive turnout as well. But just a really good time, and I know we're preaching to the choir here with our crowd, but if you can get your friends to go with you, I think it's just a fun night actually. So
which shouldn't be difficult to do. You just got to tell them there's free booze.
Yeah, exactly. There's tons of reasons to go too, just besides the fun. But it's nice to see Microsoft. It's nice to see Microsoft really coming out big with Windows Phone this fall, and they seem like to be really pushing it. Having, they did those videos that we posted up, the mashup video. And that's a really cool video, especially the one that happened at Herald Square with the giant phone that we posted. And it really shows, what the whole day was like. And I have to admit, being there, it was fun being there, but that video made it look even cooler. The crowd was not that loud.
Editing, isn't it?
Yeah. The crowd wasn't that loud and cheering, but when you watch that video, you kind of get that impression you're at a rock concert. And I think that commercial, the video makes a great commercial. They just should show a clip of that on TV and just call it, that.
Was that proposal real?
Yeah, it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Proposed in the middle of a window. I suppose it's unique, but
yeah, I rolled my eyes pretty hard at that, but I'm not.
I'd never have guessed that you would.
Yeah, I'm not a kind of cliche romantic kind of person, but
really?
no, it was fun. It was fun, and that video, I think it's great. They should, everybody should kind of pass it around to all their friends, throw it on Facebook and stuff, because I think it does a really good representation of Microsoft and Windows Phone, and I don't know, it feels nice to see them actually celebrating and kind of partying and having. It just feels good, I suppose.
Some way of looking at it. So Tyler de Normandy in our chat room said that he went to the Chicago night and he had a really good time. Although it looks like he was a bit disappointed that Nokia weren't there. The drums were okay. Didn't really know them, but overall, but I would go back. I'm guessing that was the artist that he saw.
Yeah, the drums, right? Yeah.
Drums, yeah. And Renee Ritchie's asking, did Bulma dance?
Yeah, Nokia wasn't there, which makes sense. They're not doing a U.S. launch yet, so they're not going to. This was Microsoft working with the carrier, specifically AT&T and T-Mobile, for the launch of these 4 new phones. And so it doesn't surprise me Nokia wasn't there. We'll probably see something similar, though, come the spring or whenever Nokia is actually going to launch their U.S. devices.
Yeah,
so
it would surprise me if Nokia run up with their own party.
Event,
whatever they want to call it. So nicely on the branch of Nokia, they revealed this week their plan to help developers, which is... So there's not an awful lot of information here, or certainly not as much as I was hoping for. I don't know what you thought about it. I think we got as far as that they were keen to help out people that were developing on Symbian, people that had been developing with Nokia previously. They're running, a couple of UK-based workshops, which is interesting.
Right.
Something that... tempted to go along to, but to be honest, if anyone asks me about Symbian development, I'm just going to give them blank stare. It's going to be nothing. There's something there, but as I think you and I can both agree, Microsoft kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to dealing with developers. So do Nokia really need to provide anything more?
Well, they're doing their own little bit to woo Symbian developers over. They're giving out 25,000 phones, which is a pretty big commitment. On their part. These workshops are a good idea, I think. And they're setting up the tools and everything to make it easier for people who already work with Symbian to transfer over. That's really their target audience. They're also doing things like that little app marketplace, feature spotlight thing that we demoed at Nokia World, which will also show developers from local areas and promote their apps a little bit. So I think they are trying to do the same thing a little bit. It's true, Microsoft already has a great system, so this is just an augmentation. Hey, it doesn't hurt it, that's for sure. It's good to hear at least,
Well, as you say, I was actually, and the thing is, I know a lot of developers, myself included, were kind of hoping that we'd see some announcements as to register here for your free Lumia 800. And particularly a lot of the guys who went along to the event I was at last week were quite keen on. So when are you guys giving us free stuff? And the standard.
Yeah.
If you feel like you can get something free, but I think that actually this is the kind of support that's more important, and there are a lot of really, really impressive Symbian developers out there. Some apps that I've used on my Nokia back in the day would do really well on Windows Phone, and I think if we can get this stuff transitioned over, and if Nokia is supporting that, even better.
Right.
So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that one goes, but
I'm sure they'll be giving out more free phones eventually, but they're still at the early stage of their launch, and devices are pretty limited right now. We know the fact that they don't even have Blue or Pink yet, and those won't be coming. Blue, I think, is coming in a couple of weeks, and Pink isn't even slated till something like late 2011, 2012. So they're obviously getting production geared up, but there's still a little bit of a shortage. So.
Sorry, I've just read a comment that one of my friends has sent me, which I won't read out on the air. So as we were talking about Nokia SA. I'm relatively happy. We'll go relatively happy. I'd like to see Nokia do more, but I think the developers actually aren't where they need to focus right now. They need to focus on basically everything else at the moment. They need to focus on their advertising, which they're doing. They need to focus on the experience, which they're doing. They need to focus on some more customizations, because right now the customizations aren't quite there yet. We've got a few services, but they can do more, and I think, and we both agree that they will. So we'll see how that one goes. Next up in the news that I've got, and this was actually a really interesting story for me. Again, we've talked about in the past the Windows Phone working with Enterprise, and we think the Windows Phone are quite serious about making a move towards Enterprise. We've got a great Outlook support, we've got great Office support, we haven't got on-device hardware encryption, which we hope is coming sometime soon. But there's an interesting partnership announced with Avanade. If you don't know who Avanade are, they developed the train travel app for this, one of the official National Rail apps for the UK, and they're actually half owned by Microsoft and Accenture, which is a consultancy firm over here in the UK. So it makes sense that Microsoft chose them as they half own them. They're going to be ideal for hopefully progressing the platform. What I can't work out is exactly what this partnership is for. Oh, and sorry, Renee just pointed out Accenture is a global consultancy. Thanks, Renee. Didn't realise. What I can't work out is again what it's for. We can see a bit of SharePoint or Link happening. What else can they do? What's your thoughts here?
I don't have any. I started reading this and I kind of fell asleep. I don't know. Enterprise, I know it's extremely important, but every time I start reading anything on it, I start to get soporific, and it's just...
okay.
So I don't have much to say. I've heard of Accenture before. The comments can be pretty positive on this. It seems like they're obviously leveraging a partnership that already exists, which makes sense, and they're kind of keeping it within their own system. As far as what they're going to actually do, we don't know. There's still this idea of is Tango going to bring any enterprise features, or is that coming down in Apollo? And so I'm going to probably say Apollo, actually. I don't think Tango's going to be that big. So I think it's probably still a bit early. In fact, we're still waiting on that Link mobile client, which we actually had a hands-on with at Nokia World, so you can go see that video of it in action. Well, actually, I just have photos of it, not even a video. I mean, it's good. They're still obviously in the early stages of enterprise for Windows Phone. And so they're clearly gearing for the consumer market, which I think is a smart decision. This is the same route Apple took. Everybody pointed out Apple was making a mistake at the time and ignoring enterprise. And what happened was enterprise changed its ways to Apple so that those devices could work. I think we'll probably see the same thing with Windows Phone. We talked about this last week with the idea of them getting rid of cameras for certain devices, the non-expandable memory. All this makes Windows Phone actually really ideal for enterprise, but there's still some back-end stuff that needs to be done, which probably this will help with.
And I quite agree with you. And I think having a strategic partnership, having someone committed to the enterprise side of Windows Phone does make a lot of sense. Interesting point, of course, is that Accenture are also now the guys who are pretty much dealing with Symbian, as of course Nokia sold it off to, have outsourced it to them. So Accenture is getting pretty big in the mobile space by the looks of things. The only downside that I'm working on, and this is actually going to be a personal thing because I've had some good feedback from them, but Avanade haven't inspired me with their train travel app, and the reason is that they've released about 1 or 2 updates, but there's a couple of issues such as they don't seem to understand how the linear navigation model works in Windows Phone. So every time you search for a station or you put in some information, you tap on the selection screen, it doesn't take you back, so you end up queuing up about 50. Well, not 50 is a bit extreme, but at least 10 screens that if you want to actually back out of the app, you're sat there tapping away back on your phone. And there's a couple of things which I'm not sure if it's just because they haven't committed the resources there. My understanding is that Microsoft actually approached Avanade saying that we want a train travel app with National Rail because obviously it's such an important part of other platforms. So the likelihood is that the support was never supposed to be there, but I have heard from Avanade that they are working on a Mango version, so we shall see what comes out there. And it'll be interesting to see if they continue to develop apps or if it tends to be that they're focusing now on the enterprise side of Windows Phone.
Yeah, and this is the problem we talked about last time too, about how these giant firms and companies are really slow at doing updates, and it's kind of unfortunate. I think that's what we're seeing here too. So,
yeah, not that I can claim to always be as fast, but I work 2 jobs, so you know, and we'll give people a heads up if there's a new version of the app coming along pretty soon. And I'm afraid it doesn't do anything exciting. It's just to sort out some bits. But version 2 is in development. I have started it. We will more information to come. Does that take us? I think that's enough.
That's enough.
Stuff.
Yeah. Okay, we don't want to lose everybody. Flash, we hardly knew yet. So Flash, Adobe specifically announced that they're getting out of the mobile market basically with Flash development, and so they're ceasing development basically on all platforms. They're going to be doing a couple security updates here and there for existing devices, well, specifically Android, but that's about it. So, people have always asked us about it coming to Windows Phone. It was announced before when Windows Phone even was out back in, I think it was February. We actually do the links up for that article. You can see Adobe, Microsoft were talking, we'll have a version out within the first 6 months, and we're working together. And then it came out again in the summer, and then all of a sudden Adobe Air now was on the table for possibly coming out too. And then things kept chugging along, and then Mobile World Congress came, and we spoke with some of the IE people, and they were just like, yeah, well, we're kind of moving on, HTML5, and it was kind of clear at that point that Microsoft had changed its focus and moved on from bringing Flash over to IE. And I think people were still critical at the time of it, but HTML5 seems to be the future. But as we point out, HTML5 isn't an actual video standard. It can do video, but it still isn't as robust as Flash is. And so we still
picks up a codec, and it'll just run on with one of those.
Right. So there still needs to be some work done there. Obviously, people always talk about on our website, why do you guys use Flash still? It's like, well, we don't have a choice really. We're going to be embedding YouTube videos into our site, unless we want to re-encode everybody else's videos, which I don't want to do. That's kind of at the stage we're at. So it's unfortunate. People do have to rely on the app to watch these videos, but I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. So.
Interesting question from our chat room. Jonathan RN has just asked, how can they keep developing Flash in the desktop arena without the mobile support? It's not worth building Flash if it's not going to be available for mobile. I think there's some truth in that. I really do. And the issue is that I don't think anybody listening to this podcast will argue with everything is moving to a mobile space. The internet must be available on the mobile side. Otherwise, you say goodbye to about 50% of your usage. And to say now, okay, Flash is going to continue to exist on a desktop form in anything past legacy support seems a little bit like you're flogging a dead horse to me. What's your thought?
Yeah, but I mean, Adobe's kind of acknowledged this too, right? They said HTML5 is the future as well, and that they're going to be working towards that. So I think they'll still continue desktop just because it's just so ubiquitous and everywhere, and everybody does use it on the desktop. And so they'll keep doing that, but they're obviously pushing for HTML5 too. I don't think they're, they know that Adobe Flash isn't going to have a very long future, and so they're working towards something else. Especially their Air platform is their really big thing. And so I think they're
talk about Air.
Yeah, so I think this is just, it's on live support, but that's what they're doing.
Yeah, obviously, and are we still expecting some kind of Air support with Windows Phone?
I mean, it was announced last year. Well, it wasn't announced officially, but there was some unofficial rumblings that Air was going to be coming over in some form. I haven't heard a single thing anymore about that, so I don't want to say that's true. I don't have any real faith that that's still accurate. Anything could happen, but I don't think Microsoft is too keen on it. But we'll have to see what Adobe does. I mean, Adobe moves pretty slow in the mobile area, so I don't know.
It's a difficult one because the the guy the developer who likes Metro and likes the Metro design process says, if we bring Adobe Flash onto the platform, it gives people a lot of creativity with the user interfaces, which actually might not be a particularly good thing for Windows Phone. And I know a lot of people enjoy Windows Phone as a Metro interface, or even just variations on that. What we could end up with instead is it's going to be a case of, if we have Adobe Air, people can just pretty much port over apps from other platforms, and we start to look quite samey. I don't know if that's the right words, effectively, but we lose a certain differentiating factor that Windows Phone has at the moment.
And I'm not sure if there's any killer apps right now in Adobe Air that we really need.
TweetDeck.
I mean, Adobe Air is all right. I use it for a Seismic desktop, but
yeah,
outside of that, you know, it's okay. It's just one extra thing to run on top of your OS that, for me, runs against what Microsoft
and the chat room seems to agree with us. Lou Manning, for example, thinks it would ruin it. Renee is saying it's lowest common denominator. So it seems to be quite a common theme. And, you know, some things do run on, I'd say TweetDeck I will admit to using all the time. I think that's a fantastic bit of Air software. And it's quite nice having that on a tablet and having the same interface all over the place. But would we miss it? Probably not. And HTML5, as we said, you know, it gets you the video. It's what you really want when it comes to mobile space. And Flash was based around a sort of mouse situation, you know, having a hover over as an example. And we don't get that with touchscreens, no matter how much we try and emulate it. So until we've got this sort of level where we can hover our fingers over the touch panels, that sort of aspect of Flash is never going to work. So, yeah, from a mobile space, it's probably time for it to die. But bye, Flash. It was nice knowing you.
Right. Yeah, definitely not going to miss it at all. So.
But let's say you mentioned Seismic, and actually that brings us on nicely into software news. Seismic got bumped up to version 2. Now you've had hands-on with Seismic, haven't you?
Yeah. I used it. You know, back in the day, Seismic was one of the first Twitter clients. It was never a killer app and had a lot of problems. It was just missing a lot of main features, right? I couldn't do landscape for a long time, for instance, which is kind of annoying. Then they finally added that. But they were pretty decent with the updates. They were, as far as, you know, we're talking about the big firms and taking a long time, they were actually pretty good with putting out updates, and it did get better and better. It was just every version was only like 2 new features, and it was pretty slow. But it was improvements. And so we were waiting for Seismic to do something different, and version 2 came out, and I know a lot of people kind of criticize it, but whatever. Seismic's free, you know, and that's a nice thing. It's pretty powerful. It can do some interesting things. I like the fact that it supports multiple accounts. You can now pin individual accounts to your screen, which is nice.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's kind of what you expect.
The situation seems to be really good. Is it just me, or is that pretty much its best feature?
Yeah. No, I mean, and this is what you expect with a lot of Twitter apps that are going Mango now. There's not that much originality that's going to come from this, and I hate to say that's kind of mean, but a lot of the Twitter apps you're going to see the same thing, where they'll have, like, you can pin your mentions to your start screen and have, you know, just that refresh, you know, and show what your updates are. But Seismic does a good job with it. I like the tile situation. It does work well. It's still actually a pretty fast application. I mean that in the sense of pulling data. It's actually pretty decent. And so I think for a free app and for people who maybe don't use Twitter a lot, you know, it's one thing I've learned about these Twitter applications. It's totally personal preference. Yeah, right. I mean, it's just like, people keep asking me, even on Twitter now, you know, what's your favorite app? I'm like, I don't really have a favorite one. I have multiple ones that I recommend. And Seismic, I think, for free is, you know, a decent app. It looks nice, and it works pretty well. So
that's an interesting point. Just chat room, in one word, just type out, what's the Twitter app you use the most? And disregarding the Windows Live built-in issue, obviously. Just chuck out what your favorite Twitter app is. I want to sort of see what responses we get. Personally, I'm a tweet. I prefer using the original Twitter app. The Wee Bear apparently is agreeing with me. Rovi appears to be the popular from Stevie. Renee is saying Twitter. I'm guessing Twitter meaning the original. Birdsong, Rowie. So we're definitely supporting what you're saying. I haven't seen an awful lot of Carbons or others popping up.
But, well, Carbon's still private beta.
Oh yeah.
So that's still Meadow. I recommend Tweeter Lite, which we covered last 2 weeks ago. Is really good, and a lot of people agree that actually shot up now to some of the top apps, and which is good. So there are a lot of really good ones. I think Carbon WP when it comes out is going to be really powerful, but we're still talking, I think, a couple weeks they're moving kind of slow, but it's good movement when they're slow when they're doing that. I mean, every time they do an update, it's been pretty solid. Rally is also really good, but I mean, it's got to be Mango. I can't use a Twitter app that's not Mango. I just won't. And so, no, it's that simple. The scrolling situation is terrible in pre-Mango apps, and everybody I think knows this. And for Twitter, it's all about scrolling, and so I just won't use Rally until they update. Now I know they're working on beta, but they've been working on beta since June, so I'm expecting good things, but I'm not going to use it until it's beta. So until it's Mango. So.
Renee's saying that you won't use command line Twitter anymore either.
Yeah, right. And the built-in Twitter is nice. I use that actually a lot of the time too. My problem with that is if I want to upload a photo, I have to use SkyDrive. Now that's kind of brilliant having SkyDrive in there, but that link situation is just horrible. It just looks terrible when I send a tweet out. You get this link that's like 42 characters in length and all garbage. They really need to have. Yeah, they had to build in either a link modifier or fix the situation actually on SkyDrive
or even just give the option, as you say, just the option to use some of the third-party systems. TwitPic, YFrog would be fine. I mean, Microsoft. I know that you guys. I mean, they like having control over this kind of aspect. They like using their own services where possible, but they seem to be getting so much better at actually letting you go and use your own. Services.
In fairness to them, I think they probably would have wanted to do more with the Twitter app, and it is good for version 1.0, but obviously they were constrained by time. So that's what they would probably say. Yeah, we want to do a lot more, add all these other features, but we just couldn't, in this release. So I expect, and I'd be surprised if it's not, it to get updated with Tango and, of course, Apollo. I think we'll see more of these options. But the SkyDrive situation is kind of funny. It's more endemic of, what Microsoft does, right? It's the same situation with Hotmail. So I had a message with in my Hotmail account the other day, and I was like, "Oh, I need this," so I forwarded it to my Gmail account on the phone. And then when I went today, I went to go look at it. It was garbage. It was just all like ASCII text, basically, and I couldn't.
It's like if you tried to look at a Windows Live Mail photo email anywhere else.
Yeah, it comes through as a .eml attachment, and it's just. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, Live Mail is getting a lot better, but it's stuff like this, Microsoft, that's just like makes me not able to, completely adapt. If I can't forward something on my phone, and it's only on the phone. That's the weird part. If I do it from the desktop, it works fine, but on the phone, it comes through as an attachment, and it's unusable. So what's the point? Mm-hmm. So Microsoft has some work to do, but that's Seismic. So we just got off.
Yeah, we got a bit off topic there, but the basic point is we like Seismic. Seismic is pretty good. It's a nice app and definitely worth downloading.
Hey, it's free,
sort of feel like your Twitter client isn't funny enough.
Yeah, so you can't beat that. Compass VO didn't really get to play with too much.
Did you know? Decent. I'm quite impressed, I have to say. Although, God, I went to use it for the first time today, and I was sort of walking around the streets trying to find it, and I said, "Okay, calibrate." I thought, all right, so I used to have to do this. I'll just move my phone like this in the figure of 8 situation, and then nothing happened. Okay, so have I not got a compass? The figure of 8 again.
The calibration.
Genuinely, I was stood in the street waving around like I was swatting a fly, like some madman.
Yeah. The calibration situation is pretty bad on Windows Phone, actually. I notice a lot of apps that use the compass. Every time I launch it, I have to calibrate. I don't understand why that is. I mean, you do have to calibrate on other platforms. I think Android and iPhone do this as well, but it's like a one-time kind of thing, and that's pretty much it. But it seems like every time I have to do it on Windows Phone, I don't know why that is. Every time I use a Star Map app or one of these compass ones, it does that. It's kind of annoying. Yeah.
Let's say once calibrated, it works quite nicely. And I'm quite impressed as well. You can rotate the dial if you decide to. It's a good little app. It's a very nice little place. Very nice app to use if you want a compass. And actually, a lot of the phones actually have to either come with their own compass. HTC only had a really good compass. It's nice to see.
Well, I think HTC, to be honest, is one of the best ones. I'll tell you why. The compasses are interesting. I don't have much use for them. I mean, in the city I do when I get out of the subway, and it's like, oh, go north. I have no idea where north. But the HTC app is really good because, and Gmaps does this well too, because it downloads the map as the background and then gives you your direction. That to me is actually useful. Just getting out and just knowing where north is isn't actually that useful. So I don't understand why maybe people are using these compass apps or what they're using them for.
And the only downside, as we say, when it just sort of a general thing to anyone in the public who's using this app. If you are going to walk out of the subway or the underground and wave around your phone to calibrate, please watch out for small children, because I can see that.
That sounds like a benefit to me. I'd love to smack a kid with my phone, especially with the Titan. I'll knock him right out.
Yeah, with the Titan, if you hit them around the face, they're going to have some brain damage. So please be careful of small children when calibrating your compass.
All right, that's enough of compass talk for this week. Rainbow Rapture. So for the longest time, Rainbow Rapture was called Rainbow Rapture Free. It still is too. I mean, but that always implied that there was going to be a non-free version. And I'm okay with free apps. I really like free apps. I think it's a great thing, especially when they're ad supported. I think it's great. But when I really like an app, I like it when it comes out with a paid version. I'm more than willing to give 99 cents or $2 to an app for no ads if I can. And so it took a little while, a few updates for the free version, but Rainbow Rapture finally came out with a paid version. I believe it's $1.29, I think. I forgot.
$1.49.
$1.49. And yeah, no ads. Now Cloud, instead of the ads, he does a rant, or like a rainbow rant, it's called. And it's kind of interesting. It's kind of very emo. But, Rainbow Rapture, it's just one of my favorite games, and it's huge in the marketplace. It's not just me.
I mean,
it was featured
It's not
recently.
a new concept. We should be pretty clear
Right.
that. I mean, it's a very old phone. Penguin was probably one of the best Windows Phone ones previously, but Rainbow Rapture is very nicely done. And if you've ever played a flying game where you just dip down the hill and then release to go up the hill, it's the same story with a couple of cool little twists, such as oil slicks to make you run along the ground and things go faster.
It's a funny story. It's got great graphics. The music is good. The sound effects are pretty. The new sound effects are pretty funny now. You can really hear the people screaming. And it's good. They got the online.
Sadistic, man.
I don't know. I'm pretty bizarre. I like Adult Swim, and Tim and Eric. So I need weird stuff in my life. But and now they have online leaderboards too, which is kind of cool. So I really like this game. I'm totally addicted. So I highly recommend people give it a shot. And if you want the free version, still there you go. It's still out there. Freedom.
Freedom. Yeah. Speaking of free,
what is this?
Freedom was the Freedom ROM.
Sure, the DFT, sure.
Yeah.
So these are the guys from, I think they're out of Hong Kong, and so they're the ones that are always hacking the ROMs for HTC and everything, and they released their version 2 of their Freedom ROM, which is kind of nice because it actually brings tethering to all HTC devices for Gen 1. Now, it doesn't work on CDMA yet. They said they're still working on that part, and they're planning on it. But if you're into the whole custom ROM thing, you may want to give this a shot. I admit it's a little... you're going to devote I don't know how long, but you're going to devote some time to reading the stuff, making sure you do the unlocker and all this kind of stuff. And it's a little bit of a time investment to do it. But there's some cool stuff. For instance, you can download apps now from the web and install them through the browser, which is a brilliant thing. I mean, it's one thing we'd all like to see happen. But
well, careful before you group us all into that.
Well, I know. Obviously, because piracy is a big deal. I'm thinking more for the homebrew scene, But
the homebrew scene is fantastic. And actually, I'm fully in support of custom ROMs for the simple reason that I think the guys that develop them are probably some of the most talented developers you'll find.
Right.
But so, we had as you talk about, you had the IE download and install XAPs. I think one of the big things is internet sharing, which obviously brings around internet sharing for everybody on a HTC device. This could be a reason enough for a lot of people to pick it up.
Yeah. I mean, if you need that kind of thing now, tethering is going to be obviously depend on your carrier. I know AT&T when you and T-Mobile too, when you enable it, it actually gives you a little warning message saying you need this on your account. So it's not like a free way of doing it. I don't think. Maybe this works differently. I don't think it does, but that's usually how the carrier version works. So that's still maybe the case. I don't actually use tethering that much, so it's not that big of a deal for me. But I know for some people it's like, absolutely
it's pretty useful when you've got a Wi-Fi only tablet. It makes things much easier.
Right. So
particularly when I've got to pay for one data plan.
Custom ROMs are kind of fun, but they're not as awesome as they were in the Windows Mobile day, where they were just like 9,000 features. Seriously, as someone who I used to make custom ROMs for the Trio Pro and the Touch Pro 2. And so you could just do so much cool custom stuff, including the way it looked, and you modified everything. It was a lot of work, but it was kind of fun too. It was very hobbyist. Now, there's like 3 or 4 cool features they can do, but outside of that, it's not that big of a difference, So, but it's fun if you're really into that kind of into that.
Learning something new about you if you're cooking up custom ROMs.
Oh, I was really famous on it was a PPC Geeks back when that site was relevant.
I was so famous.
Yeah, no, it was like everybody. You had the chef section, and people would make ROMs, and I had the Mal Tester ROM. I know there's somebody around from 2 years ago. You probably remember those, and they were kind of fun. And you could get donations and stuff. You could actually make some decent little side money for all your work that you put into it, and it was a lot of work. But it was a cool scene. It was definitely a cool scene. I'm kind of glad it's over too. So I have other hobbies now. So.
So yeah, that's custom ROM loading. As we say, we've not seen an awful lot of it for Windows Phone. It's mostly in the HTC area, thanks to some what appears to be some very lax FTP rules within HTC. But it just seems that they're quite happy with anyone taking their data. But if you're interested in that kind of scene, I'd love to hear back from some people actually that have tried it out. Anyone that's sort of given it a shot, and especially in our chat room at the moment, if you're sat in the chat room and you've got this custom ROM, I'd love to hear what you like about it, because it's a scene that I'm not at all familiar with in terms of mobiles. Never had an Android phone. So
sorry, I'm making fun of your Britishness.
Say again, sorry?
Nothing, I was just making fun of your Britishness.
Oh, why?
At all. It just sounds so. I just like saying it. Never mind, go on, sorry.
No, please, carry on, I'm enjoying it.
No, it's okay.
So that was me summing it up. I'm going to move on now before Dan taking the mick out of my accent. Dear. Maybe you'll learn to pronounce words properly. We've got an interesting story this week about game emulators, and WP Central's reported on them quite a lot in the past with regards to the fact that there were all kinds of illegal. But we've got this new one that's brought out. I forgot what it's actually called. I think it was VNES Lite, I think is the name.
Right.
Yeah, VNES Lite. It's a free emulator that runs NES ROMs, and it has been put onto the marketplace. It's actually passed certification. I don't really understand this. It seems like Microsoft has just done a complete U-turn on the ROM situation.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, and apparently, according to some discussion in the App Hub, that seems to be the case as well. Now, it's important to note, of course, this doesn't come with any ROMs built in. It's just the emulator. Right, so you have to actually provide your own ROMs, but it does it pretty easily. You give a link to where the ROM is, like a HTTP link, and either zip file the ROM itself, and it'll download it and install it. Now, I haven't actually gone through and done this because you have to go hunt for the ROMs and either host them yourself or find a site that has them in that format. But it seems people are really into this kind of thing, so I need to sit down and try it. I have the Titan, which is probably the best gaming device. I know people are still worried about the resolution issue, but it really isn't a problem. But just for pure gaming, it's a great phone for that. So I need to sit down and kind of throw some old games on there. But we'll see. I kind of find sometimes the emulators are full of gimmicky, but
No, I know what you mean. And sometimes it's sort of you're playing on these ROMs that aren't necessarily built for what you're looking to do, and sometimes the custom generated, stuff that's developed for a touchscreen tends to give you a better experience. Well, saying that, I'd love to have the Ocarina of Time on my phone. We'll put it out there.
I mean, this is what it comes out to, right? Everybody has their one game that they just really want to play on their Windows Phone, but it's mostly, I think, nostalgia, which is a dangerous trap for people to fall into.
And it's actually our great community has put a couple of comments in under this article. If you go and find it, there'll be a link on the podcast page. There's a couple of links to areas that you could, or places that you can go to find this sort of information. Not that we support it in any way. But we have a very active community who does.
I'm not that big on piracy either, but obviously games are 20 years old. I don't feel that bad about. It's not like people are going to you can't even go to the store and buy like an old Nintendo anymore and throw these go and buy the game. So I mean, really, how is anyone losing money? Because there's no market anymore for financial exchanges of this intellectual property. It's not like
obvious exception of things like the Wii Store.
Oh, okay, I suppose. Yeah, but I don't even own a Wii, and because it's garbage.
So I just had a question from Wheeler 2011. Sorry to break, but he's asked me if I'm going to improve the video embedding in the WP Central app. The answer is at the moment it's staying as it is because we are using YouTube. If things change, then the app will update to reflect that. At the moment, the YouTube information is a case of I'm going to continue using Microsoft's officially sanctioned method for now. although I have had some very generous discussions with the SuperTube guys if we decided to go down a different route. But YouTube, as we all know on Windows Phone at the moment, is a little bit of a nightmare. When that changes, the embedding will change. Okay, that gives us game emulators. Talking of games, I want to stick on games. This Fusion Sentient that you mentioned to me last week was released.
Right.
How are you finding it?
I haven't played it, so I can tell.
There it is.
I'm telling you,
I don't need to download this one. Daniel will download this because Daniel was talking about it. And
I did download it, and I think I launched it. But I'll be honest, the Xbox Live games, I'm not that big of a fan of. I'm just not. They're very few. I like Fruit Ninja. I like cool. That. I forgot the name of the tower game.
Tower Blocks or
no. The name will come to me later. I mean, there's a few games. There's only like 3 or 4 games I really like on Xbox Live, but I find the indie games to be a lot more compelling and interesting. So a lot of times I download the Xbox Live games, and they just, I don't know. There are too many ports.
Jet Car Stunts is pretty good.
Which one?
Jet Car Stunts.
Okay.
Did you play it?
No.
No, it was released in a week we didn't do a podcast, but I was quite impressed with it. I did have to admit, I did sit playing the trial for a while and just sort of trying to get this car to go over these different areas. It was pretty good sandbox to play in, and the trial was really long. So definitely recommended one if you want a bit of a fun drive. I say driving game, it's sort of a driving, stunty, flying, weird.
I did play it for the first time it came out, and it was fun. I like the graphics on it and stuff. I do need to probably try it again. I just find a lot of the problem with a lot of the Xbox stuff for me is it's a lot of ports, and you can tell they're kind of ports, and so they don't feel as awesome. I think that any of the games that have been original content for Windows Phone have been really compelling for the Xbox platform, but when I just get these old ports, they're just not as interesting. So that's me.
I'll just sum up what because Paul's talked about the game, and obviously he likes the fact that it connects to Fusion Genesis on the Xbox 360. Phone-grown sentience can be sold or traded from the auction house. I don't understand that, but if you understand the game, you know why. And he's saying that it's addictive. He's saying it plays like a real-time strategy game. As players can direct up to 5 units around each map, pausing, issuing orders, that kind of thing. Although he doesn't like the fact that it takes between 30 and 60 seconds to to load each mission, which is pretty long for a mobile game. I'm hoping. Oh, and he even says it's not even Mango compatible out the gate, which means that you can't even fast app switch back to the game. So maybe one to trial out, and if it gets a Mango update, we'll let you know. And at that point, that's probably going to be one to have a play with. Sticking on Xbox Live games, Battle Wagons, which was mentioned with it's Iron Sun Studios, who you quite liked the Iron Ball EX, didn't you?
Yeah, actually, this is one game that I really liked. Unfortunately, I beat it, and I haven't gone back to. So I don't know if there's any necessarily big replay value, but I really liked that game. Maybe I'll actually give it another spin. But yeah, that's kind of cool. So
yeah. So what do we know about Battle Wagon?
Not too much. It's an interesting game. It is, as Paul points out, a sort of new genre for the platform. So this is kind of like about this studio. At least they're bringing unique stuff to the platform. It's an arcade action strategy game. Players equip a medieval battle wagon with various weapons and upgrades, and then send it to invade enemy castles. Combat uses simple one-touch controls that should be well suited for mobile play, with 68 levels that take place across the 4 seasons. And some lovely Amiga-esque graphics. Battle Wagon should provide a fresh and lengthy gameplay experience. I agree. I think this looks kind of cool. So hopefully we'll be seeing that.
That was beautifully read, by the way, man.
Thank you. It's going for a late December release. So no, I think it looks like a good game. I know whatever Paul writes, that's what it comes down to. Paul has his own
yeah, Paul's a pretty good indication of whether or not a game's going to be quality or just a bit of waste of time. But there you go. So that's all the software that we have for the last few days.
Actually, I just want to quickly mention 2 homebrew apps that came out. That were pretty awesome. One is it's an app to restart your phone. So
yeah, someone explain this to me, because I mean, last time I checked, I can turn off my phone with the power button, and I can turn it back on again with the power button. It's a fairly fundamental design parameter.
Yeah.
So what's the point of a restart app?
Well, because it's actually a little bit simpler. It's just a tile, and you just tap the tile and restart the phone. It's just simpler. So holding down the button.
So you tap the tile that I'm guessing you can accidentally swipe through as well, and your phone restarts.
Yeah, but you can put on a screen, a confirmation screen. It's an option. so you can have it say OK or cancel. And
which is the same amount of time as it would take you to press the damn button.
No, actually, it's not. No, I disagree. Holding down the button's kind of a pain on some phones. And
what? It's a button. It's right there. It's so easy.
But you got to hold it down to turn it off, and then you have to hold it down again to turn it on. I'm just saying this is a little bit easier if you have to restart your phone. I don't know. There's two people that fall off this camp. Some people in the forums were like, "This is really cool," and others are like, "This is stupid. Why do you need this?" I'm one of those people. I think it's kind of a cool thing. It's the first time it's been done.
I'm glad we don't both fall on the same side, because it just seems like the ultimate in a lazy exercise of, oh yeah, I'll just unlock my phone, I'll scroll down and I'll tap this tile.
But this was big on Windows Mobile too. I mean, Windows Mobile had
Windows Mobile needed to be restarted. Windows Phone doesn't most of the time.
I guess
it's stable. Stable. Yeah. See, running for like a couple.
But there's no negative to having it. There's no side effect, so why not?
It's taking up tile space,
I suppose. Then there's also the battery live tile. No, because I still have it on my phone. I'm keeping it there. The battery live tile is also kind of cool. It gives an ongoing measurement of your battery, the actual percentage, which I know a lot of people are battery, freaks, so they really want to have that.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool app. Actually, I did like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of nice. It all came from the same guy. That's Singularity 0821. Which, hey, these are kind of cool. This is what makes the homebrew community kind of fun. Yeah. So, if you can unlock your phone.
He's definitely breaking down a few interesting barriers. He's doing some cool sort of homebrew stuff, and it's exactly why the Chevron Unlocker is there. It's for people like this who are talented and want to sort of play around with the slightly more deeper end of the phone, and it's some pretty cool stuff that we can see. It's definitely. This is just an inkling of where things are going to go, and I think we're going to start to see some really, really interesting apps pretty soon. Right. So if you haven't already thought about unlocking and getting involved in the homebrew scene, it's probably not a bad idea, especially if you listen to this podcast. Likelihood is that you want to get your phone unlocked.
Also, we didn't talk about, or did we, Tango last week? Was that released?
We talked about Tango last week. We did. We didn't. We haven't. I didn't put on here the whole HTC and Samsung own apps.
Let's just quickly mention. Yeah, each HTC and Samsung came out with their own versions of the app. I know some people would seem to be kind of concerned about this. I'm not at all. The app worked either way. The main app, the first one, worked on both devices or on Samsung and HTC. It worked fine, but Samsung and HTC also have deals with Tango, and so they get the same code and everything. All that I think this means is these apps are a little more tailored for their specific hardware. Meaning the camera may be optimized a little bit better, the brightness and all that kind of stuff may be tweaked a little bit more for that specific hardware. I don't find that a big deal. I actually find that kind of cool that they've done that and gone out of their way to make sure that the experience has been pretty good. And so I think that's a cool idea.
Sorry, just got to interrupt you. We just had Tyler de Normandy has just been talking about it'd be nice if we could use the black space right under the arrows on the home screen for custom actions. And Brandon Watson's called him out on it and asking him what he'd like. So, guys, Brandon is the guy to tell your suggestions to. And if he's listening and he's in the chat room, hey, Brandon, go ahead, throw him your suggestions. So I just sort of thought I'd break and say thanks for joining us, Brandon. So we've basically, I think have we exhausted most of the software stuff?
I believe so.
Okay, good. So we'll move on to the hardware news. And there's a lot of cool hardware news to talk about this week. I'm going to start with the Omnia W launching very quietly in the UK, and by that I mean it's available on Play.com, which is a phone that I'm crying over pretty much, because I want everything about it with more memory. I would have chosen this over the Nokia Lumia, honestly, because I'm really happy with my Samsung phone. I just need more memory, and if we could just get a 16 gig version of something Samsung Gen 2 shipped to the UK, I'd be happy. And I think a lot of people, especially in the UK, are pretty agreeing with me. And the comments.
The only benefit I see with the Omnia W is really the front-facing camera, though.
Yeah,
because I have the Lumia 800 right now.
The build quality is going to be high as well, because it's. I mean, arguably, yes, the Nokia is good too. And actually, it would have been nice if it had a bigger screen. But the front-facing camera is a big deal.
Yeah, the Lumia 800, just real briefly, is a really nice device. It's probably one of the best screens as far as actual visual clarity and quality out of all the devices I've seen in brightness. It works really well, but it is a bit small, 3.7. It's just a hair. And I say that, it's kind of weird, because the radar is only slightly bigger, but the radar feels like the perfect size where Nokia is just a tad smaller. But the Omnia W, which is basically the same as the Focus Flash here in the United States, it's a good device. George reviewed it if we want to read more about it. But yeah, this limitation of memory, for some people, this is a make or break kind of deal. Now, in fairness, the phone is aimed at the entry level user, which I would argue Jay isn't, but he just happens to like the design. I'm kind of like that with the Radar too. The Radar is entry level, but it lacks a compass and gyroscope, which I think is kind of lame. But
the thing is, it's. I understand that they're marketing these phones around different areas, but it would be nice if we could just see some variety and options as to sizes that you could go for, because it would just give you that little bit more choice. And we aren't particularly spoiled for choice in the Windows Phone world, especially with the second-gen hardware. Granted, we've yet to see what LG are going to come out with. Nokia have only announced a couple of phones. But I don't quite understand why they feel the need to differentiate these devices so much in terms of not having multiple memory set options available. I'd rather see the phone, the design, the hardware, and then, if I want to say, okay, I'll give you them £50 or $50, and here's a bit more memory. I think from a consumer perspective, that makes more sense.
Yeah. No, I agree, but it is what it is. Sorry.
It is what it is.
Just get a Titan and just be happy, man. That's
a Titan would be an option. Actually, I saw a guy in front of me on the train this morning. This afternoon had one, and
oh, no kidding. Yeah,
I wasn't jealous at all.
I'm still throwing the Titan as probably my top Windows phone. People are curious. I mean, they're all really good. That's the thing. And none of the phones are bad. They're just it depends what some people are going to say the Titan's too big. I still disagree with that. I don't think it's that big of a phone, but clearly some people are like, I don't need 4.7. I want a 4.3. So this is the issue that we're going to run into. But the Titan is my go-to phone, pretty much. That and a Radar. So
true. And actually, interestingly, Polychromans is just sort of saying, as he said last week, he'd prefer to see a micro SD that only allows you to store music and pictures. I could see micro SD existing entirely for media only. I think it would actually confuse things a little bit in Windows Phone. I've already said that I'm actually with Microsoft on the unified memory structure. But if there was a middle point anywhere, then I agree it's to have music and pictures only on SD cards. But it opens up a can of worms when you allow this sort of stuff to sort of be injected into the phone. And I can understand entirely why Microsoft are doing it the way that they are. It just makes life easier when you don't have to worry about managing storage. It's just, aside from how much you've got. But which actually brings me nicely back to, if we have to have one method of storage, it should be as big as possible. We should have the options. The iPhone is there. It does have the options for you to go 8, 16, 32, whatever you want to go for. Keep it simple, great, but give us the variety to choose between the different options, because we've already proved people, as soon as they found out they could get access and update or swap out the SD card, they did it straight away. Not everyone wants that customization, but if everyone had the accessibility to get that kind of customization, they would go for it. And it's something that's key now that manufacturers have got to get their hands on, because offering just 8 gig with a couple of 16 gig models is not going to cut it anymore. We need storage is increasing. We can talk about cloud all we like. We need more storage on these phones, and we need a couple of 32 options as well. Because the power users want to be able to be really proud of their device. But I've said enough on that subject, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got into it a bit there.
I honestly don't care. I'm fine. But let's see. We had the Focus Flash and Focus S reviews. George did a really good job of both of those. I know a lot of people asking for the Focus S. Why haven't there been many reviews for it? We take our time with our reviews. We don't do this 24-hour nonsense of have a phone and review in 24 hours. We actually use them for a few days. So I'll probably also do a post maybe this week if I have a chance on my thoughts on the Focus S. Now, George is, he's pretty positive on the phone, and the Focus S is a good device, but in fairness to George, he hasn't played with the Titan yet. And I think when he tries the Titan, he's gonna be like, because the Titan really, in terms of quality of the hardware, I just find it a lot nicer. Both the camera's better. I think the screen is better. Now, it's a different class of device in the sense of 4.7 versus 4.3. But other than that, they're both pretty equal. And so, what's interesting, the pricing came out for the Titan too. We should announce that. AT&T finally announced that this is coming on the 20th, which is real soon. And it's going for $199. I'll be honest, I was kind of thinking they might even price it at $249. Kind of that premium experience. It is the biggest phone that they're going to be offering. But they were actually aiming it for $199, which means I think the Focus S should have been $150. And because I just,
But yeah, no, they're not. You know, Samsung and HTC aren't talking about this. This is their devices to sell.
Yeah,
this is not a coordinated Microsoft price structure. We've got to remember.
No. I mean, this is something AT&T could have that worked out with them as far as the pricing. But the Focus S is a deceiving device because it is very light and thin, and people say it feels cheap, but it is very powerful hardware. But I think if you're going to drop 200 versus 200, I would take a serious look at the Titan. I think when a lot of people see that phone, they're going to be like, this is for me, and so
it will appeal to an awful lot of our listeners, without a doubt. And the thing is, it is big, but it's not unmanageable. It's beautiful. The screen is excellent. It's 16 gig. It's all the bells and whistles. If you're looking for the top end phone right now, the Titan has the crown, and there's no doubt about it. And I'm well aware that pretty much everybody in our chat room agrees, except for a few like me who were looking forward to the Lumia 800 launching very, very soon. Which we should mention, it's coming out very shortly in France on Orange, and 3 in the UK are now taking pre-orders on it. Which and I'd still recommend 3, even though we don't associate particularly. They're a good place to go if you're looking for the phone. Let's stick with Nokia and just talk about the Champagne.
Yeah, so we got this from the developer for IM WP7. Every once in a while, gives us some internal statistics from his app, which is really kind of cool with him. And he passes them on to me, and I just go through it, and it's basically like an Excel file, right, with all the listings of device names. And that one file shows when new devices were picked up and the date that they were first discovered by the app. And so I go through them, and I always check the names and model numbers up against other lists, and I see what's out there. Nokia Champagne stuck out. Obviously, it's a new phone. We don't know anything about it. It does run on the AT&T network, but that's not really indicative of too much since it's a GSM device, so that's what we know. It's not a Verizon phone, so I could have said that. But, of course, anyone could have put a SIM in there and made it run on AT&T. Nokia does have offices out in California, so they could be testing the phone out there and just be using it on AT&T. That doesn't mean it's coming to AT&T, which is why I didn't really want to put that down. But it looks to be a new a new GSM phone. It could be, a variant of the Lumia series. It could be. I mean, we've seen this with HTC, right? They had the Ultimate, which sounded pretty awesome. Turned out it was just the Titan, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But,
and it could be the Champagne in the US, but it could also be the Ace,
a new
phone.
One of
the other phones.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this tied in nicely with this other rumor that The Verge. Well, The Verge is putting it off as more than a rumor. They, putting it as more confirmed, but it's not exactly shocking news, right? That AT&T and Nokia are working on a phone. It's going to offer LTE. Now this all comes together, right? Nokia was the first one to say that, hey, we're looking at LTE already. Microsoft said there's coding for LTE out there. Nokia's been pretty aggressive in trying to get that code to work with. Not that others aren't, but they're really kind of pushing for it. And we know Nokia wants to make a big push in the United States, so what better way to do it than launch an AT&T, the premier carrier for Windows Phone, make it LTE, and, so all that kind of comes together. So is the Champagne that phone? It very well could be. Hopefully we'll see more. Usually when we break this stuff, we start getting more information a couple weeks later. It happened with the Nokia 710 and the 800. When we did Lumia, we were the first site to actually name it as the Lumia. More information started coming out about that, and so we'll actually see what happens. But it's kind of exciting. LTE on a Windows phone. Yeah.
Sorry again. Sorry.
I was going to say LTE on Windows Phone. This is marketing. Don't get me wrong. LTE is pretty awesome. It's fast. There's no doubt about it. As far as I don't want to call it true 4G because that's still up in the air, but it really is kind of more 4G than HSPA plus. It is ridiculously fast. Yeah. Well, yeah, but they market it here as 4G. I mean, the Focus Flash or the Focus S and Focus Flash are marketed as 4G phones. Same thing with the Radar 4G. They're just HSPA plus though. This is the weird marketing thing that the GSM carriers got into because I think it was T-Mobile was the first one that said HSPA plus is 4G. And so now AT&T is like, all right, but we also have LTE. Yeah, so now there's like 2 4Gs, right? But LTE truly is fast. I do question about how useful necessarily is on a mobile phone. I know that sounds weird, but hopefully they get the battery. I think once they get the battery consumption issues, which supposedly they will, under control. I mean, it's good if you're going to download the podcast on the go. you know?
I mean, it seems like it could be burst. I mean, you could, if you need the bandwidth, you burst it up and use 4G. Right. Otherwise, you can switch down to. I mean, there's ways to get around battery issues. No, it all adds up, and we know it all adds up. But 4G, as we're talking about, Chris Nicole, for example, just saying with internet sharing, 4G gets really useful. And yeah, he's got a very good point. You know, you whack on 4G if you've got enough data on your phone. The problem is that it also means carriers are going to have to start getting quite strict with their data because there's only so much that the networks can take.
Yeah. So these are all kind of issues, but none of this surprises me if it's true. It's actually exactly what you would expect Nokia, AT&T to do. So hopefully we'll see more of that.
And we should just, going back to the Champagne, we should point out it is running Tango.
Sure, right. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's how we know it's really a true... Yeah, I should rephrase. That's probably why we know it's a next-gen device, right? That it is running, not only Tango, but it's running a more advanced build of Tango.
Do you know what? I wouldn't be too surprised if Nokia's devices that come to the US launch with Tango on them.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the game. Well, it'd have to be, right? If we're doing the LTE thing, Tango is supposedly going to support LTE. Now, there is also the possibility that they could just use the LTE code from Tango and do some weird kind of hybrid intermediary release of the OS. But yeah, it's probably going to come out with Tango. And so we'll see that all come together in Mobile World Congress in February or CES in January. We'll start seeing announcements and more rumbling. So we'll see what happens.
Brandon Watson's listening. Brandon, if you want to confirm that Nokia is launching with Tango, I'll do you a big favor.
I asked Brandon about Tango, and he's like, "Oh, I hear it's a great dance." He's like, "I'm Dancing with the Stars. They were doing it last week." He's really good.
You've got to admire his ability there.
But he's got that tough position where he knows a lot but can't say anything, and so it's. I try not to even ask him a lot of these questions because I know it's just kind of torture. But yeah, always good stuff. Well, we'll see what happens. He's probably chuckling. I know a lot of these rumors that we always post stuff. Because he knows that they're true or not, but that's what we have to do. So.
That's true. Okay, so what else have we got? We can talk about. In fact, I think we pretty much covered hardware news. There's got a couple of talking points that I've got for us to chat about. I'm actually going to start with the last one on the script because I don't want to end on a bad note. Hubmaster went Mango today, and it got me thinking. I don't know how you're feeling about this, but one of the things I said when we were releasing out when Mango was coming up, I was saying that. One of the things that was shown off is multitasking is really important for games. We all agree fast app switching is actually really, really important for jumping in and out of games, being able to jump into a text, jumping into an email, taking a phone, anything, just being able to resume back to where I was. And the Xbox Live games are not getting their updates anywhere near as quickly as I was expecting them to. I mean, case in point, Angry Birds, you're still going to resume back to it again.
Fruit Ninja. I really need Fruit Ninja to have
Fruit Ninja, exactly. And the thing that's also getting me, I remember, I think was it Joe Belfiore was showing off a Mango build of Angry Birds back in Mix?
Oh, was it? No, I don't remember that. It was definitely
Angry Birds.
It was the airplane.
It was announced for March, and it was, I guess, a case of he could demonstrate this Mango fast app switching.
So I remember the airplane game. I forgot the name.
No, I'm going to go back and find that Mixed keynote, but it was definitely in that because I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, good, Angry Birds might even launch on Mango, which obviously didn't happen. But you know what? Where is it? What's the delay? Especially with the huge games like that, there's no, unless they are working on another big update to roll into Angry Birds.
I think that's what a lot of these studios are trying to do. They don't want to just put out a Mango version. I think because it's tough enough to get an update through and takes long enough that they're. You're seeing some of these companies roll into multiple bug fixes as well as some cool features. I'm
all for, but this seems like to me this seems like a bit of a failing. I don't know where the failing is. I don't know if it's Microsoft not making things easy enough for them to be able to submit Xbox Live updates, but something is not.
Well, I think that's something we've heard about before, right? A lot of devs have complained that the Xbox Live system is really strict and onerous to work with. I mean, it's there for the standards and everything, but it is difficult. They can't just publish updates. It's a real back and forth, and I think it is a little bit slower than most people would like. So I think that's just what that is.
So here's the thing I'm also wondering is, I don't know the internal workings of Microsoft, so I don't know if this is the case, but if it's the chance that Microsoft get a submitted version of this XAP, I don't believe that they couldn't just take the exact same XAP, build it in the Mango environment.
And push it out. I understand. Right, I know.
Because, you're pushing Mango now as this big update feature, and it's fantastic. We all agree on that. We all think it's a great feature, but games is the most important place to have fast app switching, and the Xbox Live titles.
I will disagree. Actually, I won't say games are the most important area. I think apps. I think apps. I use apps way more, especially with fast app switching. It's really important for transferring data. If you want to copy text from one app to the other, I get an email for a shipping notice. I want to be able to open up my tracking app and put it in there. This is real important stuff, I think. For games, it's convenient for the fast app switching, but I honestly don't use it that much with my games. It's nice if you get a phone call in the middle of a game, but other than that, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I
jump between playing the game and then getting a text message replying, jump back into the game. I want to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's useless. I'm just saying, I think with apps, it's a little bit more imperative. Also, the 60 frames per second thing is kind of cool. I mean, games definitely look a lot better when we have that as an option. So
Renee is saying I've got my rant pants on.
Yeah.
I'm not know about that, but I'm going to go and get my soapbox because I feel like standing on it. But anyway, that's just my little outburst over. But it's something which it's been a long time now, and it's about time that we had something better. It's about time that Xbox Live things were updated. Onto good news, onto good things, and we've got 2 new advertising campaigns that were out about this last week. One was in India? Was it the "I Love You Guys" adverts?
Right.
And,
that's in
the
India.
other was just around today. It was Banter, I think it was called.
That came out this weekend. Yeah, the Flash Focus Flash ad, right?
That was it. Did you watch both of them?
Yeah, of course. I think I posted both of them.
What do you think of them?
I think they're good. I mean, the India one, which actually I didn't post, but I did submit that article for posting. But I think it was hilarious. Actually, it was really funny. I mean, granted, it was in what they call it Hinglish, so a mixture of Hindi and English, so you can't understand all of it, but you don't really need to. I thought it was actually pretty funny and witty. It was a good commercial. Banter, I thought it was also really funny. It's only a 30-second ad, which
Banter is brilliant.
Yeah, I thought Banter was a really good idea. Now, here's something I also knows about commercials. They're sort of like Twitter apps. No one ever agrees what's the best. And so every time we run a commercial where I think it's really funny, people are like, oh, that's stupid. And it's like, and commercials are, I mean, I think sometimes we know when a commercial is bad, but as far as what makes one good, I think we can all sort of debate about it. It's sort of like art. You're never going to get that 3-minute ad, right, that shows every cool feature of Windows Phone. It's not going to happen. And we all have a different interpretation of what's the coolest part about Windows Phone, especially Mango. Some of us are like, oh, the built-in social network. Some are like, oh, the multitasking. So it's kind of hard to focus. But I thought this was a pretty funny ad. They show the social stuff,
Exactly. It's continuing with the whole put people first thing. It's we've gone from the advertising campaign that might not have worked that well, the whole get in, get out, get back to your life, to put people first. And put people first is pretty good. I like it a lot. It's a very good idea, and it's working. And you know what? I think I can still remember. I think the last words on that Banter ad was "wishy-washy" or something, and that's stuck with me. If you haven't watched it, go and watch the Banter ad. It is really, really good, and it's that appeals to me. I don't know if it's just aimed at my demographic or what, but it works out pretty nicely. And I like the fact that we're seeing a couple of inventive ads coming around now that do more than just run with a concept. They're showing off the phone actively for something it does, because I don't necessarily agree that Windows Phone is a whole get in, get out situation. But it's a really good ad. I like it a lot, and I thought it was worth us just sort of bringing up both of those. Also on the advertising, we've got Mango trucks, which right. I think, was it you that posted this?
Yeah. That was from one of our readers, whose name I'm forgetting. Do you have your article open? I like to give them a little credit, because we're always big fans of our readers here submitting stuff, because there's no way we could possibly get all this information.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, this was kind of cool. So let's see, who was it that submitted it? Load. Electric Bo Peep, who's a longtime member and reader of our site and big into forums. But they submitted these photos in New York City, but in fairness, the truck's actually going around the whole area, New Jersey and stuff. And so it serves Mango-inspired food. It's free. They also have the devices there to demo them. They're going around to the AT&T stores, so it's actually kind of a cool tie. And I think Microsoft's been getting pretty good with advertising lately and coming up with innovative and things to talk about. And I think this is an example of that. I thought it was kind of cool. So
Yeah, and it's nice to them actually sort of almost rising to the bar that Nokia set.
Yeah. Nokia stuff is hard to live up to, I think, but no, I'm glad with all this New York City stuff that they're doing. It's just really nice to see.
Good, and that's actually I just think I was about to go on with something else and realised that my head was empty, so I'm gonna stop. Wraps up talking points nicely. So we're going to move on to community stuff. So chat room, get your questions ready. They can be about absolutely anything, including asking for a video tour of our relative houses, but we're not going to do it. You can ask. It's not going to happen.
No.
This is my flat in London. There's nothing to see. But we will go to comments from last week. Gary Moncrief, who's a friend of the site, friend of the podcast, great to hear from him. He's talking about Local Scout working better Local Scout being working better in the US than Nokia Maps, but Nokia Maps potentially is going to be more useful in the UK. And I think we touched on this last week, and I think he agrees with us. Effectively, Nokia Maps at the moment is going to be much better for the UK users, whereas it seems to be quite well established in the US. I think we both agree with him on that. And he's also talking about the music. It's an evolution of the old Ovi music. Again, Ovi music was quite a prominent force out here in Europe and in the UK, so it's good to see that. What else has he got? He's talking about, effectively, he's just saying that he's looking for the Lumia, saying that the Omnia 7 was always a bit too wide to fit comfortably in his hand. Just some nice, interesting comments, sort of feeding back on what we've talked about. So, Gary, thank you for getting in touch. Craig B has said he wasn't able to find this podcast in Zoom Marketplace until he searched for WM Experts, and a search for WP Central only found the app. Have you got some news about that, Daniel?
Yes, it's fixed.
There we go.
So, I just want to give credit here to, I took care of this last night, actually, and that's only because of Robert Greenlee. Rob Greenlee is in charge of the Zoom Marketplace as far as podcasts go. And he's really accessible. You can email him, and if you have a podcast you want listed, he's the guy you want to talk to. So our podcast has been listed in the marketplace for a long time. It was under WM Experts, our old name. And, I just never got around to fixing it, and to be honest, I didn't know who to talk to for a while about that, because we updated our feeds, but our feeds didn't reflect all that information. So now if you go to the marketplace, type in WP Central, and then you scroll over to podcasts, you see us listed there with a new image and app description, stuff like that. Although it still says Dieter Bone and Malatesta, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I am Dieter Bone.
No, in the app description, or the podcast description, it mentions you, so chill.
I'm honestly not worried. But yeah. What else we got? Last comment from Tian Fu. Looking beyond Windows 8 and Windows Phone Apollo, do we see the two becoming one, or we're more likely to see two separate operating systems with very similar and complementing each other? Will Windows 8 and Windows Phone Apollo apps be the same and available in the same marketplace? Now, this is interesting because we've talked about it before. We think they are going to merge, but I'd actually kind of prefer they didn't, because I don't think that we wouldn't get a stable OS.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen by Windows 8 and Apollo. I think it would be more Windows 9 and whatever is after that. That's when it'll happen, if it's going to happen. Now, MS Nerd, which Brandon Watson always doesn't have a lot of faith in, so you can take that for what it means, was posting that was the game plan to merge, but now Nokia changed everything, and that's not going to happen now. And so I still don't want to commit one way or the other to that. I think it makes sense in a certain way, but not with today's technology, but they're moving towards that, I think. So it could happen, but I honestly don't have that much information on that to suggest if that's true or not.
Yeah, and I think it's likely that they will look at some kind of merging, but I kind of hope they don't, or certainly not with Apollo Windows 8. I'd rather see Windows 8 on tablets. I'd rather see, which we are seeing, C# and XAML apps existing on Windows 8, which they will. And I'd rather see the phone continue to mature on its own, because it's a little bit more. It's just me, but I think that the Windows Phone platform isn't really strong right now, and I'd rather see it mature rather than suddenly just be squashed by Windows 8. So that's my view. Let's move on to questions from the chat room. The first question I've got is from Jimotagi. What's the difference between Birdsong and Meadow paid and free versions, as free seems to have everything? Can you answer this one?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't. I think they're supposed to have ads, I believe. That's usually how it works, but it's been a while since I own both apps, so I haven't used the free versions in a long time, so it's hard for me to comment on that. But you could pretty much contact the developers and, go down that route. We could try to look it up, but
it's usually very easy to get in touch with developers, so I'd recommend going with that.
You can usually find them on Twitter. So
yeah, just going to break on the last question, on the last issue of Windows 8 and merging. Wheelerk is saying I should be looking at the big picture, and he's perhaps right. Maybe in the long run, a unified operating system is better. So it's just personal preference right now, but certainly if it was pulled off correctly, I'm sure it'd be a better thing.
Sure, yeah, that's what it all comes down to.
Wheelerk's also asking, what's your primary device right now?
I use both the Titan and the Radar. And now the reason I say that, I use the Titan on the AT&T and the Radar is on T-Mobile, so I can actually have both devices active at the same time, and I use them like that. Now the Titan I'm using a little bit more because I use Kick Messenger, and you can only have Kick logged into one phone at one time. So I'm using that a little bit, but the I really like both phones a lot. The Radar for me is great with the 4G. I get very good data speeds around here, and I really like the size of it. Titan though it's just one of those devices you turn it on, you're like, oh, it's so pretty. So I use both phones and endorse both. My Focus S, I use it once in a while. The Lumia, that's only a loaner device, so I don't get to keep that, and that takes a micro SIM, and I wasn't provided with one, so I'm not about to go to AT&T and try to get a micro SIM just for a couple weeks. But it's a nice phone. I would use the Lumia a lot, but like I said, the screen is just a smidgen too small. It's just
okay,
but it's really nice.
I felt that as well when I was using it, and I think I'd get over it. But it's a bit strange when you've used the bigger screens and all the tiles look smaller. What's going on?
Yeah, but it's a brilliant screen though. So
yeah, I completely agree with you there. The WeBear UK is saying that he hasn't received his usual app. Or our app Toasts is something wrong over the last 2 days. WeBear, I've been receiving mine fine, which means that potentially there's something wrong with your installation. I am aware of a bug that I mentioned before. There's a version 1.7 coming very soon to fix it. In the meantime, if you absolutely can't get it working and your background task isn't working, it does get fixed if you uninstall and reinstall the app. I'm sorry about that. There is an update coming soon. And that's all I'll say on that one. Jimotagi is asking, are we like Ant and Dec, and will I always be on the right? I don't know. But I should mention, hopefully by next week, we should be in better video quality. Right now I'm just using my graphic computer one, but we'll be in HD. High def, which sounds even more terrifying, but we are looking to go high def very soon. What else we got? Konstantin Litovsky, I think Litovsky, I've said that okay. He's asking, is anyone else having issues with Ghost app updates? The marketplace says there's an update, but when you open it, there's nothing.
Yeah, I've had this issue initially when I didn't upgrade to Mango, but they went away after a while, so I don't know why that is, but it seems like it eventually fixes itself, but I don't have that problem on any of my devices right now, but I have seen it in the past. I can't really give you a good recommendation on why that is or how to fix it, but hopefully it'll go away. So sorry about that. Polychromeds asks same old questions every week. Any news on Skype? I hear it's now only 4 weeks away. Yeah, that was from a comment on another site that someone wrote in that was unconfirmed. It's just as possible. I mean, I don't doubt when someone says it's 4 to 8 weeks away. It's in beta testing right now. Okay, that's totally expected and reasonable, and it very well could be the truth. But we don't have any actual firm information on that. The last time we heard was it's still coming this year. So that's all I can say. This year's only 8 more weeks left, right? So that's what I would expect. I think it's going to come soon. It would have been nice to have that announced with the New York thing, I think, instead of what was it? Spotify, which honestly I don't care about, but
I'm sure it's just a case of it's not ready yet, and we don't want to rush them. It would be nice to have. We all wanted to see it, but I'm sure that there's a good reason it's been delayed.
Yeah. So, but no, we don't have any actual. There's no firm information on it. So sorry.
What else have we got? Having a look. People are asking about Windows Phone 7 or 8 tablets. We know there's Windows 8 tablets coming soon, so I'm going to skip over that one. Apologies to Lou Manning who asked it. What else have we got? People are asking, you've got the Titan, haven't you?
Yeah.
How are you finding what's being discussed about as the pixelation? I think we mentioned this
It's before. Not. I don't understand. I haven't seen this. I've been running quite a few games on it, photos, everything. I don't notice any issue with the fact that the PPI is lower than on, like, say, the radar. I mean, I still think when I bust out the Lumia, the screen is small and tight. It looks incredible. But I don't have any issue with the Titan screen whatsoever. None. There's just no problems. I have no complaints about it. It's just nice and gorgeous. So maybe my eye isn't as good as others. Some people do see things that I don't. But for me, I haven't noticed anything about it. So.
And so we'll just pick up a couple of others that are to talk about. But what else have we got? Any word of security issues on of the Tango app? Paul Thorough wrote something about it.
Thorough was just
Mac Junior asks.
Yeah, Thorough was just reiterating what Rafael Rivera wrote, which we've been meaning to do a post on, but for some reason we haven't gotten around to it. Rivera basically broke down the app, and it submits your address book to their servers for indexing, basically, so that when you sign in with a different phone, it pulls it down. How Tango works, right? It's like WhatsApp, where it accesses your phone's contact list, so that when you're in the app, it brings down all your contacts that are also on the same service. It's actually really kind of cool, but some people don't want their information obviously broadcast out to someone else's servers. Totally understandable. Yeah. Now, in fairness to the app, it does have a switch you can throw, and it will remove that information from their servers. It will be purged. But it's only after the fact that it was sent in the first place. So that's kind of a concern, I think, for some people. But if you're going to be using apps that integrate with your contact database, and this is something you should be aware of, right? This is what happens. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but everybody's viewpoints on this is very different, obviously, when it comes to privacy and security. I'm one of those people that thinks, if you're using these devices in the first place, you probably shouldn't. If you're really, really paranoid about privacy and security, you probably should just be using a flip phone. So, because there's just too many holes. There's just too many things to keep track of, both that you're in control of, and also the things you're not in control of. That makes it very difficult for privacy, I think. So.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to finish on, because I've been asked a couple of times on Twitter today by Woodbane Andy. I've made him wait to the end of the podcast. Wants to know basically where I'm from, because he can't work out my accent, apparently. So Woodbane, to answer your question, I was raised majority in Southampton, although as part of my time in Suffolk, and then I've lived in Guildford and London. So I'm a bit from everywhere. There you go. Dan, where are you from? Let's just go with that originally.
I'm from Connecticut.
Connecticut, there you go. So
on the border of Massachusetts. Yeah.
So there you go, a little bit of something about us now that you can see our faces and everything else as well. And that just about wraps it up, I think. So, Dan, do you want to...
Oh, wait, just real quick. Hold on. Kevin asked about CDMA. We always got to do this every week.
Oh, yeah.
No new information on CDMA. Sorry. I don't have any clues as to Sprint or Verizon. There was, I think, an LG phone that was talked about, maybe, that went through the FCC, but there are no leaked roadmaps or hints or any information we have actually on CDMA. I expect we will hear more towards CES. I do expect Sprint and Verizon to both do something. There's rumors of Verizon and Nokia. That kind of really spread on the internet without much to back it up. Once again, it's totally plausible. Nokia and Verizon have, they go back. So it doesn't surprise me if it's true, but I don't feel comfortable in saying it's absolutely happening either. So as soon as we hear more, I'm a Sprint customer too, so I'll definitely be the first to try to find that information, but so far nothing, so sorry.
Yeah, so we hope to have something soon is the answer, really. And actually, just before we do wrap up, I should say that we are now intending on this being the weekly showtime, I think, aren't we? And that's I said. Yep, so hopefully 4 Eastern Time and 9 GMT for those of you like me in the UK is the new time for the podcast, just 2 hours later than it used to be. So hopefully we'll see everyone next week as well. Dan, anything else to say?
No, I think that's it. You can find us all on Twitter at WP Central, myself at Malatesta77. You can find, CopperTop004, that's our reviews guy, George, who's very good at this stuff. Rich Edmonds is at Rich Edmonds, Jay, of course, is at JT Bennett, and then Paul's at Sega Khan. It's been a Mobile Nations podcast, so you can go to mobilenations.com for more great shows covering everything mobile, including our Mobile Nations podcast, which I think is coming up again this week. Hopefully I'll be around for it.
Hopefully.
Well, it depends on the timing. I got a busy week this week, so thanks to
so busy, man.
true. Hey, I got 2 careers, man. Thanks to the WP Central Store for sponsoring the podcast. Thanks also to these great artists for the music. And that's basically about it. So thanks to everybody for joining the chat room. Hope we didn't freak out too much with the video stuff. But we'll be back next week, hopefully around the same time. And keep submitting your questions, and we'll try to answer them as best as we can. Take care, everybody.